He's Metz. He's Tass. It's the Metzger Tassoul Show.
Well, that never gets old.
Oh man, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. But I almost made a big boo-boo. I was just updating my software system on my computer. I almost hit restart and would have taken like probably 25 minutes for it to reload. So I'm glad I didn't push that button.
Very good. What are you doing in the sweatshirt? It's 91 degrees out.
You know what? Spring for us is coming. We had an unbelievable rainstorm the last 2 days. I mean, I don't even know how many inches of rain, but I bet you we get 2 to 3 inches of rain the last couple of days. Which
Really?
the good news is it's melted off all the snow, or the majority of the snow, which is great. So it's supposed to be 60, I think, tomorrow or Saturday. So that'll be good news.
Nice. 60. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So we're getting there. Mr. Johnson, how we doing, sir? He just sent me a text earlier. He had a renewal that did option A, which is fantastic news. So he's doing great.
I had a client, I won't mention names, but they were upset that they weren't upset. They were kind of being funny, but upset that they unexpectedly have an additional like $45,000 they have to pay in taxes.
I think I probably got the same text.
I said, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. My dad always used to complain about taxes. And then my grandfather would say, if you got to pay, that means you're making money. So stop complaining.
Right. I said, be blessed that you have to pay some taxes, right?
Right on.
So anyway, so today we're going to talk about, I know there's a lot of martial arts school owners that are one man or one woman operators. And there's schools that have volunteer staff,
right?
Part-time paid staff, full-time salaried staff,
free child labor
staff, exactly. And the free staff are volunteers, right? We have people that help us out, teach some classes, warm up, whatever you have them doing, and the single operators, owner operators, a lot of them just have nobody. They do all of it, right? And so anyway, so I want to talk about it and why is one better than the other or not better than the other, or how is it different? And if you are a one man or one woman show, or if you are a school that has volunteers or unpaid help, maybe we could talk about how you get them to be paid help.
Right.
And also, what's the difference between having a job in the martial arts and having a career in the martial arts? As a matter of fact, let's just ask that question. Can anybody explain to me, not explain to me, but in a sentence or so, what's the difference between a job and a career in the martial arts? Does anyone want to chime in and put themselves out there and just give their thoughts? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just perspectives. So again, what is the difference between having a job in the martial arts and having a career in the martial arts? The pause is your segue, Tass.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, well, I was going to have them respond too. If you have 0 staff, 1 staff, 2 staff, I would like you guys just to put the number in there. That way we kind of know who we're talking to as well. It'd be great. And by the way, I don't think, we just had Jay McGowan in, right, as our guest speaker and at our event. And he had some catchphrases, which can just be catchphrases if you want to consider them that, or you can actually execute and implement some of those things and really like internalize them. And one of the catchphrases that he says is, use me, but don't misuse me. And I think there's a difference with staff, right, or with volunteers, because we're not going to say that you can't use, kids to come in and help lead or be leaders in class or volunteer staff. And it's okay to be able to use people, to be able to do that for a certain period of time, or if the relationship is reciprocated. But don't misuse your volunteers and your volunteer staff, right? I think, and your staff, and by the way, your paid staff as well. One of the other things that we talk about is that I think a lot of companies and organizations, when they have a manager, they hire a manager, and they salary those managers. I think that the majority of companies out there tend to misuse that manager title and allow them to be able to just like have them work 60, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And you say it all the time, and we say it in our school as well to our team. Look, we don't want you working more than 40 hours, right? That's not what we want. But we also need to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And so there are going to be times a year where things are a little bit busier and we need to get things done. But as a whole, our goal is not to overwork our people, right? That's just not what we're in the business of doing. We want to create a great culture and a great opportunity for all of our team. And you guys have done an amazing job at that over the years. And I just see the executive team doing continuing that, and just like it's exponential growth as far as the culture of the martial arts schools and the team and staff that you have. And now that's being shown, that we're being shown the path on how to do that in our own schools through the elite program and through our CMA schools, and it's starting to catch fire, which is awesome. It's always awesome to see that kind of growth.
It's interesting because I always say work from the top down, not from the bottom up, right? Because we forget, again, what our mission is, and every school, every business should have a mission statement. What is it that you're trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Even as a martial arts professional, regardless of title, what is it that you're trying to do? Are you trying to impact more lives with martial arts? Are you trying to spread your art to more people? Are you trying to just give yourself a hobby, just something because you just love doing it, so you want to have a pass? I mean, whatever it is, stay focused on how you can get there and how you can get there in the biggest way. So, I when I spoke at the event, I did a session on multiple schools, pros, cons, and how, and I said, you don't open up multiple schools necessarily because you want to. You open up multiple schools because you have to. And what I mean by have to is if you do a great job, right, bringing up students to a black belt level, and if you do a great job showing people how great it is to teach and be part of this lifestyle or this career, and you get enough of your black belts that say, look, I would love the opportunity to have a career in martial arts. Can I come work for you? Can you hire me? Can you bring me on? There is a finite number of people that you'd be able to do that for before you would have to open up a second location. I mean, you have to open up a second location. And there's a finite number that you can offer that to with 2 locations, and you'd have to open up a third. So when we break it down into one school, if you eventually get enough students training, you're going to need help. You're going to need assistance. Now, you like when I say we're going to take a test and circle the right answer, right? Now you could say, well, I have help. I have, one of my brown belts helps me on Monday, and one of my black belts comes in every Tuesday. And then, this person comes and helps with classes on Wednesday. And that's better than no help. But what's better? Having 3, 4, 5 volunteers who you can't get upset with if they say, I can't make it in today, right? I can't come today because I'm tied up. If they're a volunteer, we have to say, no problem. I totally understand. That's fine, right? Number one. Number two, when you have a group of students that are coming 2 to 3 times a week to your school, is it better when they see different people when they come to class in that week? Or if they saw the same team consistently, where that team gets to know that student even more because they're there every day, even if it's from 5 to 8:30 p.m., even if it's part-time and it's only 3.5 hours a day. But to the students, your customers, they don't know if they got in at 9 in the morning or if they just walked in at 4:45, right? Consistency is the answer. That is the better answer. That is the better way, right? It also is when you have a job, you can't just decide not to show up for the job. Now, some of you will argue and say, what are you talking about? I have people that are paid and they don't show up there's a lot of times they don't show up. I understand that, but in context, you could get upset. There could be a disciplinary action if somebody just doesn't show up for work and they're a paid staff member or team member. So the thing is you want to try to get somebody on board. Now, here's the thing. Let's start from the bottom right now, right? Because I also ultimately know, how can I have a little more flexibility for me, whether I'm a chief instructor, a senior instructor, an owner? How can I help more people with martial arts, right? Well, if you are an owner, I'm assuming that if you are an owner of a martial arts school, you probably are a martial artist, right? And the majority of martial arts school owners open their school because you teach. You're a teacher. I think it's rare that some program director that doesn't know martial arts opened up a martial arts school because they just love the office, right? So my point is, the first person that I would recommend that we bring on and hire is not somebody to help me on the floor, but somebody that can help me in the office, because I, as the owner, most likely, I got the floor. I got it.
Right.
I'm going to teach my system, my style, my culture. I'm going to do that. I need somebody to help me in the office with appointments, lead follow-ups, enrollments, renewals, upgrades, selling retail, talking with parents, customer service. I need somebody there while I'm tied to the mat, right? Then my next hire, and that can be part-time. Then my next hire, because once you do that, you will grow. You will grow.
Right.
Then my next hire would be an assistant instructor. Maybe it's only 3 or 4 hours a day, Monday through Friday, whatever it is. So this is how you would start building. And then as you grow, that part-timer, one of them, turns into a full-timer. And I'm going to throw it to you, Tass, but one of our formulas in our schools is up to 200 students, right? 150 to 200 students. With the right team, you can run a school with 2.5 people, 2 full-timers, 1 part-timer, but consistent. What are your thoughts, Tass?
Yeah, it's interesting. I sit and think back a little bit, like, I could have been in the school, right, and continue to teach and do everything on a regular basis, and maybe have a couple paid, staff members as well, team members as well. But it's interesting whether you say, I said this earlier. We tell our team, like, we don't want you working more than 40 hours, but I want you to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And there are times, just being transparent, they hear the first part, they never hear the second part. And when it's time for us to get busy, they forget about that second part. Just like when you talk about multiple locations and why you should open multiple locations. People hear I should open multiple locations, but they miss the second part of that, which is because sometimes you may have to, because you've got that bench strength. Don't go open a second location because you think you're going to make more money, this, that, and whatever else. So in my case, and we do that because we can impact more lives. And this is a little bit different scenario, but you can do that in a school, from 1 school to 2 to 3, so on and so forth. And because you can only help a finite number of people in one location, right? I mean, that's just the reality. Well, in my case is I had a great team. Then we had a lot of bench strength, and we split off into 2 locations. I mean, I was able to step back, but now through consulting, right, we want to make a bigger impact. Well, now I have, all kinds of clients that are making impacts in their own schools. So we're having a bigger impact, a bigger splash in the martial art industry, which is in all the communities that we serve as well. So I think it's important to make sure that you understand both parts of it. And here's something I hear a lot of time from single owner operators is they just don't have the time, or we run into situations where they can't do an intro, or they can't talk to somebody about a potential higher level training program. I stayed away from the taboo word there, you noticed. They can't do they can't do certain functions of their business because they're on the floor teaching, and they only have a 5 or a 10-minute gap between their classes. So by taking that advice and getting a program director in your school, as an example, that's going to allow you the time to be able to focus on the floor while that person can focus on dealing with all of the customer questions and the enrollment conferences, the upgrade conferences, the renewal conferences, all of those customer service things that they can do. And now you can actually reduce the amount of time that you're there at night in the beginning, because you don't need to have these 10 and 15-minute gaps between class, because you need that to go service your client. You can actually bring your classes tighter together. You don't need those gaps in the short term until you grow. Like when you hire a program director and we start doing some of these things, you will grow and we'll add more classes. But then again, well, how are you going to work potentially a little bit less? Well, by taking on that assistant instructor, getting them where they need to be. And now you maybe have some time where you can back off and not have to teach all the classes. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Some of you, are I say something. I was the same way. We're very committed to our students, and we have a hard time if I use MyEcon that's coming up as an example. You really want to do continuing education, but you don't want to close your school, right? Because you don't want to do that to your students. You don't take a family vacation because you don't want to do that to your students. Number one, I'm going to tell you, you have permission to close your school, right? You can do that, number one, especially if you're going for continuing education. And people also understand traveling with family and spending family time and good quality family time, right? But sometimes what happens is we're so focused on we have to be in our school all the time that we can develop a little bit of burnout. And you have to have a great life as well. And that's where that help comes in. And you can teach if you want to, we have that option, or you have to teach because you have to. Like, which one is it? And I hope everybody does it because they want to. But some of the haters will say, well, no, I do it because I love martial arts. We all love martial arts, right? But does it mean that you have to be or need to be strapped to your school for every single class, every single day? This is not a season, right? It's 365 days, 6 days, 5 days a week, whatever it is for you. It just gives you, we always come back to it. It gives you options, right? It definitely gives you options. And so that's the benefit of looking at how to get people integrated into your school. And a lot of times the reason we don't pay our staff is because, let's just call a spade a spade. The funds just simply aren't there for us to be able to do that, because if they were, I think everybody would agree. Would you rather have somebody come in that is just volunteering that you can't pay, or would you like to compensate them for their time to show your gratitude and your appreciation? I think everybody would say, well, yeah, I'd love to be able to pay those people, right? I don't think it's any different.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, here's another big thing people do. on the volunteer context, right, where we get students just to assist and volunteer, it's a Band-Aid. It is temporary. We think that it's saving us money, but ultimately you don't realize it's costing you money. You don't realize that, right? Because they're not trained properly, technically. Now, you might put them through leadership and everything, but it's different than your job, right? And the other thing that people do, and it's not necessarily in context of staff, but in that same mentality. How many of you on here just say yes if you've ever done it? Not that you do it now, because I'll say yes, I've done it. 30 years ago, I did it, 25 to 30 years ago. How many of you had bartered with your students where instead of paying you, they come in and clean the mats twice a week, or they do something for your school? How many of you bartered? That's the same mentality as getting volunteers. And I know how you're thinking because I thought that way. Let me ask you, Tess, did you ever barter with students?
100%. 100%. And we had a leadership team, and I would get them to come in and assist in as many classes as possible. I mean, some of these kids were coming in to help with 5 and 6 classes a week, right? That's misusing that, right? And so, because it was to help me. And then of course I could spin it like, well, the gift is really for you, because the more you teach, the more you're going to learn. If you have to teach it, you get to learn it twice. And I could come up with all the cliches and all the answers, but the reality is, it was definitely taking advantage of those people. So fast forward to today, when we have leadership, we let them know they can help with 1, but the maxed classes they can help and assist in is 2 per week, because I just don't want to misuse people.
And by the way, I don't want to be taken out of context. A lot of people have a leadership team where as they're learning, kids are learning, they come in 1 or 2 classes a week and they'll help you assist. That's okay. But the ultimate goal, remember, what is it we're trying to get to? I don't want volunteers my entire career and my whole business life. The only reason why you're in leadership and you're volunteering 1 or 2 classes is because you're prepping yourself to become a part-time paid staff member or team member. And those part-timers, we have a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 assistant part-time. Once you hit level 3, you're done. As far as you're not going to get any more raises, you're not going to grow unless you become a senior, which is a full-time salaried position.
And this is where you
become a chief. Go ahead, Taff.
This is where you say starting from the top down. So the chief's responsibility, right, is to get that senior trained up so they can become chief, right? So now we can move a chief to a new location. The senior's responsibility is to get that assistant 3 to a senior, right? So they can replace themselves. And that's how we keep things going. It's like, I like to use baseball. I'm not a baseball fan, but I like to use baseball as an analogy. We have the Timber Rattlers here, right? And they're a minor league team, but that is the feeder program for the majors, right? And so that's really what our leadership program becomes, is it becomes a feeder program for our paid staff. So they go through the train, we get them ready, we get them prepped, and then we pick and pull some of those gems out of there and offer them the opportunity to become paid staff and be able to grow with the company. And that's the fun. I mean, for me, that's the fun part. And sometimes that happens, early on, right? Some of these kids are 10, 11, 12 years old when they come to leadership program. They might be in the leadership program. For us, 14 is the age that they can start working, in Wisconsin with a worker's permit. I think that's pretty much nationwide. And we will have kids put their applications in when they're 14. And it just, it's really interesting. I just got a text from Fernando Martinez. I used to call him Gucci. He was always dressed to the nines. He was one of the kids when he came in. I always told him, have your hair gelled, make sure you got cologne on, make sure you're looking the part. And he sent me a text the other day. He's 22 now. And he sent me a text and he said, hey, hello from Buenos Aires. I was enjoying a cigar with my dad, talking over some goals that I'm bringing into action. He mentioned how big of an impact that you and the martial arts had on my life trajectory. So I just want to reach out and extend my gratitude again. He always, a couple of times a year, he reaches out and just says, thank you. It says, hope all is well. Now, funny story about him. His dad, I'll never forget. And this is why, let me tie this into the volunteer. So if I had a volunteer that answered the phone when this phone call came in, this kid would have never been part of our program. Because his dad called and he said, you guys teach Aikido? I said, well, that's a great question. I said, what is it about Aikido that you like? And he really didn't have a good answer. I said, well, it was a general answer. I said, well, yeah, we do a lot of those things. I'd love to get you guys in for a free evaluation lesson, and went through the whole deal. Long story short, get him in. His big thing was, well, I heard Aikido from a friend is all about self-defense first, and it's not about being offensive. I said, that is our entire philosophy. We had a Taekwondo program, not an Aikido program. But had I not known how to take that phone call and get that person in, I would have never had that impact on this kid's life, right? And so everything really goes full circle. And he's at 22, extremely successful, doing a phenomenal job. Had the chance to meet up. I think I told you when I was in Vegas for this last year's Super Show. He's living out there, and I had a chance to meet up with him. Great kid. But that's, if we say, look, our goal and our mission is to impact people's lives. It starts from the top down, but the people on the bottom need to be trained so that we can provide opportunities like this. I'll give you another. This is a little different example. This is just for fun. So we had somebody that came into our school. This is six months ago, maybe. And you guys might think this is an ethics question, right? But I'm going to tell you, it's a being trained and knowing what to do question. Always make sure people know your location. Always make sure, even if they say yes, you give them directions, because somebody showed up at our school for their 5-year-old and they were there and we didn't have them in the appointment book. We're like, hey, welcome to Championship Martial Arts, da, da, da. And we're like, okay, we just started going with the flow. Well, they had paid $39 or $29 or whatever it was for some sort of trial program. And, the wife, I guess, had called and she said, look, you're at the wrong place, right? While they were in the middle of doing the intro lesson. And so my daughter, who's our program director, said, "Hey, listen, you're more than welcome. This is where I don't think it's an ethics issue. You're more than welcome to go over there and do that. But if you want to, we'll go ahead and honor that as well. We'll give you the same time. I'll give you a uniform. You guys have already been here. If you want to do that, that's great. If you want to go at the other place, that's fine." He says, "No, we're comfortable here. Let's do it here." So they end up enrolling into our martial arts school, right? And they were actually in the wrong location, right? We gave them the option. But fast forward to today, that person is doing a legacy program with us.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So the point there is sometimes if you just have volunteers, they're not just properly trained, which brings me to the next point. Some of you on here may agree with what we're saying. Some of you may disagree. But for those of you who agree, then the question is how do you do that? Right? Because especially like Mr. Olson, I think you had mentioned, how can I make this take the place of my full-time job or my day job, or somebody had mentioned that. And you guys are so busy. Maybe you work a full-time job and you get to your school and it goes right into classes and you go to 9 o'clock and then you get something to eat, you go home, sleep, and repeat, right? It's not easy, number one, but number two, you got to invest every hour you can into your whatever core career you want, whether that's owning the school, being an instructor at the school, a program director at the school. Again, I don't like getting caught up in titles, but if you're an owner operator, what do you got to do? You got to stay Saturdays. Every Saturday, you have to have a training for your people. And here's the other part that you'll struggle with. If you have volunteers and you have like 8 different people that come in and help you throughout the week and they've been with you for years, and you're like, you know what, these guys have a point. I really need to have consistency. I need to get somebody that's here Monday through Saturday or Monday through Friday, and I got to start paying them, but I can't pay all 8. I can't pay 3 of them. I can only afford to bring on 1.
This is going to go back to the first thing that you asked the question about earlier. So everyone should pay attention to this.
Who is that one? Right. Who is that one? And go ahead, Tass.
And this is where you need to have a conversation with each of them and find out, is this something that you see yourself doing long-term? In other words, is this a job for you or is this a career for you? And then find out, one of those people may really be looking for this as a career. And then that potentially can become your person and makes your job of finding that person a little bit easier, right?
And it's tough. And so we'll always say, look, we love every one of these people, but one-on-one, you're the most experienced. You're the one that we'd really like to give the opportunity first. Would you like the opportunity? And if not, it's okay. But then I got to go on to the next person and see who's available. But I got to start somewhere and start building up the corporate structure, because at the end of the day too, you got to ask yourself this question. I say it all the time. Are you a martial arts school owner or are you a martial arts entrepreneur? And whatever it is you are, please don't confuse that with how good you teach your martial arts classes. A martial arts entrepreneur, a true business owner, will be able to impact so many more lives than just the martial arts school owner. Right. And so you got to be able to know how to do both. And there is a method, but I'm not one to sugarcoat it and say it's just easy, because it's not. There's a grind. I can tell you that it gets easier. I can tell you that it's very hard in the beginning, and not many people can stay through that grind to get to the other side to where it's a little bit easier. But once you do that, you also, if you're an owner, you have to give that opportunity to your team members too. You can't keep your team members in the grind forever. Some of them may choose to stay in the grind forever, but some of those people may want to promote and work up. And what do you have for them if they do that? What do you have available? That's why we say we need some type of corporate structure. So there's levels to all of this, but it's a principle, it's a philosophy here. And if you want to take things to the next level, here we are, Tass, in 2023. I mean, 2023, and I know there's people and we talked about this the other day. We've been doing this show for 6 or 7 years now. And I know there's somebody on here that's been watching for 6 or 7 years that's still kind of in the same spot they were 6 or 7 years ago.
Right.
I also know that there's people that were watching 6 or 7 years ago that no longer have a school.
And
that's okay.
And by the way, there's people that were watching 6 or 7 years ago that were about ready to go out of business, and now we're doing over $1 million a year in their school. Right. It's all about the choices that you make. And part of that is, and I was going to circle back to this because sometimes we just don't think big enough. Like, what's the vision for your school? Well, I'm fine with my 80 student or 100 student school, and that's okay. But it's sure hard to paint a vision for your people and for your upcoming team. Yep, we want to stay at 100. We don't want to get any bigger than that. That's just what our goal is. It's always going to be 100. I'm always going to be here. Maybe I'll have some assistants in the future, but this is just what we do. Well, that's like knowing the outcome of a ball game before the end ever happens. You don't have to watch them play because you already know the outcome, right? It's boring. There's no fun. There's no excitement. And so I think, there are different visions that you can paint, of course, right? Maybe you want to have a world-class demo team or competition team, and all those things are great. But I would challenge everybody just to dream bigger, think bigger, and really understand, well, what is your why? And because it's inevitably when we talk to school owners, their why is they want to impact their community. Do you want to impact 80 lives, 800 lives, 8,000 lives? Like, what do you want to do? And then I know how the mind works, because they're like, well, yeah, you say 8,000, Tassoul, but I am doing that because I'm impacting 70 or 80 lives, a year, and then over the course of the next 20 years, that's going to be thousands of lives. I get that, but take that same mentality, and if you're impacting hundreds of lives or thousands of lives a year over the course of a year, how many more lives would you be impacting, right? Like that, we all come back to that. I think that's what the mission is. I had this conversation with my daughter the other day. Is the more that you believe in what you do, and getting texts like that from former students that were with me years and years and years and years ago, right? And they look back and they're like, oh my God, that martial arts training had such a profound impact on my life and where I'm at today. That is what you have to remember you're quote unquote selling when you're talking to people, is they don't know what they're potentially saying no to, right? You've seen people go from white belt to black belt. And so when someone wants to quit at yellow or orange or green or blue, or whatever color, why do you try and keep them? Because if you could put them in a time machine and bring them to that moment in time where they get their black belt, they would never quit. They would never quit. But that's what we have to become masters of, like the vision, and creating the vision, not only for our students, but also for our team, to know what that future vision is. And you will help, and you'll pull everybody to the top with you. And that's really what the mission, that's what a good leader does, right? They pull everyone to the top with them. So
100%. And by the way, there shouldn't be a number, right?
There shouldn't
be. I want to impact as many people as I possibly can with hey, I don't know if you all have noticed.
But that's hold on before you say it. But that's non-quantifiable, right? That's like saying I want to lose as much weight as I can. Oh, I lost a pound. That's as much as I could do. So it's an easy out on the other side, which is why you have to have a why, big why, right? Or BHAG goals, right? Big, hairy, audacious goals. And you have to be able to quantify it so you've got something to aim for, especially if you're competitive. That's why we bring in numbers into play. But yes, it should always be more, and we should always be growing. So anyway, you're going to say.
I was going to say, I don't know if people on here have noticed, but it seems, and this is just perspective, right? And I have a pretty good life, but it seems the world today is a little tougher than it was, 30, 40 years ago. The world is a little bit, some people would say, worse today than it was 30, 40 years ago. Maybe it's because we're just exposed more to social media and everything going on, and a lot of the weirdness in the world that maybe we weren't exposed to 30, 40 years ago, even if it was still there. But now more than ever, I mean, do you guys really remember, if you're old enough, do you really remember in the 80s hearing about all the mass school shootings? Do you remember hearing all about that? Like I never heard of that before until Columbine, I think, was the first time I really heard about it.
Right.
And now it seems like a monthly or weekly occurrence in this world. what we do is so important. That should be your driver to want to impact more communities, more kids, more people. People need guidance. People need leadership. People need positivity. People need hope. Did you guys see this? I don't even know if it's real. And don't judge me. I have a 14-year-old daughter, but
Oh boy.
I was scrolling through TikTok, right? But they had the kid, supposedly, and I didn't verify this, but the kid who shot up Parkland. Did you see this? Where he put a video out talking about what he was going to do, and his goal was to get 20 people. And he was talking about how his life is meaningless and it's worthless. And he was just filming himself talking about this. And he said, a lot of people are going to die. And he starts going, pew, 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 like he starts making the sounds and stuff. Do you think if this kid had some positivity or role model or martial arts in his life, it could have helped a little? I'm not saying it would have prevented everything, but is it possible that it could have prevented this? Is it possible for what we teach and what we do?
And now you're not affecting one life, you're affecting the 20 of the people that got killed or whatever the number was, and the hundreds of people that have trauma because of what they saw. Like, it's this ripple effect, right? And we've all heard the expression, like, people do not care how much you know till they know how much you care. And I say this all the time in your business. You don't have, a revenue problem or a money problem. You have a relationship problem. And I think the better relationships, when you're on the floor teaching, are you really focusing on the why behind what you're doing, or are you just teaching the curriculum? Is it just, hey, this is what you got to know if we go from one level to the next? Or are you really teaching life skills in your school? Are you helping to shape the kids' lives? It's crazy to me what you can what things that you remember, and what small things that a student will remember years ago that will shape their life. I'll give you an example. For some reason, when I was in high school, I was a social butterfly. I did not do very well academically. I was an average student, and I got put into an honors English class. And I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to do this class. And I'll never forget Denny O. He was the basketball coach, Mr. Oudenhoven. Carla Oudenhoven was the school secretary. And where I lived, we had a set of railroad tracks, and I was getting a ride from a senior that could drive. And inevitably, we get stuck in either by a train or in between the two trains, and we were late for school. So we had to go report to Carla Oudenhoven. And she's like, okay, another train. I'm like, yeah, another train. So I get put in her husband's class, in this honors English class. And I'm an average student. And he said to me, he said to the class, here's the thing. If you guys we're going to write a lot of papers over the course of the year. And then, of course, now I'm even more frustrated. Like, I do not want to do this, right? I wish Chat GPT would have been around then. But he's like, we're going to write a lot of papers. But here's what I'm going to tell you. If you write about something that you know about and you care about, you will write an A paper every time. And I was like, for real? Because I started martial arts when I was 9, right? So I'm in high school. I had a lot of years of martial arts. I'm like, I'm going to write about martial arts for every paper. And I'll be damned if I didn't get an A in the class. Well, how does that translate? Well, I translate and fast forward, right? I go to college for 2 years because I had to, right? My parents were like, you need to go to college. I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm going for. And I was going for computer information systems because, I could really like tear up the Apple IIgs with a monochrome green screen, right? Like, I should go for computer information systems. It did not do anything for me. And so I dropped out of college. I'm like, man, what am I going to do? And this is interesting how people's words will resonate. I'll never forget me thinking, well, if I do something that I know about and care about, I should be able to be successful at it. But it was his words in a high school English class that he mentioned in one sentence that changed the trajectory of my life forever. You're doing that right now with students in your martial arts school. So be mindful of the words that you're saying to your students, because they carry a lot of weight, and you're an influencer in your martial arts school and in your community, right? And I just think that's so important for us to remember.
I had a similar experience in sixth grade with Mr. I can't even finish the sentence.
There we go.
With Mr. Mazer, actually, when he pulled me out of class, grabbed me by the lapel, slammed me up against the brick wall, and said, "Your ass is grass, Metzger, and I'm the lawnmower. I'll be keeping my eye on you." I've been straight ever since, man. Those words resonated with me too. Same type thing.
Funny, man.
Actually, that's a true story. This guy, I recorded myself saying how much I hated him in 6th grade. I hated this guy. I got suspended off the bus. I got into some trouble back in the day. And it wasn't long after. It was at the end of 6th grade when I went into 7th grade that I realized how impactful he was, just because he disciplined me, man, and he took some care, with me. It was tough, and I'm not lying to you. In 6th grade, you do that today, you'd probably be in prison, right?
Right.
But it changed. It changed things. He grabbed me by the shirt, put me up against the wall. I was 12, and that's what he said.
Yep.
But it was impactful.
There's moments, right? Like I could go through probably a handful of moments in my martial arts school, right, when I trained, about what an instructor said or what they did, and those were big, we call them magical moments. They were magical moments, and they were either inspiring or they were from a disciplinary side of things. But those were the things that I remember to this day. And you're talking, this is 30 years ago. I mean, a long, long time ago, right? 30, 35 years ago. But those are the things that shape us. So if we can do that, and if we can show how much we care in our school, you're going to grow to a certain point, but it becomes hard to service so many people, which is why we need the team, which is why we need the help, so that we can continue that momentum and be able to continue to grow. And look, I have a strong belief that, people should be compensated for their time. And I would love to be able to do that, right? And I would have loved to have done that years ago. And I remember with a staff member when I was struggling, and I said, look, he was on payroll, and we went through a bad time. This is 25 years ago. Went through a bad time. And I just said to him, I said, look, it's your choice. I said, I'd love to be able to keep you on paid staff. I just can't do it. And so I totally get if you need to find another job or you don't want to come in. And he stuck it out. And then he got back on payroll like 6 months later, right? But it was a choice. It wasn't, me forcing him to stay there. But you feel way better about paying people than not paying people. And, we're here. Listen, we're here to help. I mean, at the end of the day, we're here to help you guys do whatever you want to do. But I would challenge everyone. Let's all think bigger. If we want to bring this industry to the next level, if you want to bring your martial arts school to the next level, and if we truly do mean what we say, right, then we want to impact more lives, then let's really do it. Like, let's not just, impact 80 lives or 100 lives. Let's do this, and let's make it big. And in the process, professionalize what we do in the industry, and that's really why we're here, and why we do what we do, is to try and bring everybody up to that next level. And sometimes it may not seem that way, right? It may seem, they're pitching us their program, they're doing this. The only reason is because maybe you think we're like egotistical, like we just know that we can help. Not because we're so smart, but because we've just seen it all, done it all, heard it all. And we've been doing this for so long that we know that systems work in every location across the world, not just in the United States, not just in Orlando, Florida, not in Wisconsin, but everywhere. And there's a system to be able to do things that doesn't affect the integrity of the art. It's just over top of what you do.
Yeah, without you losing who you are. I mean, that's the biggest misconception. And question here, what's your guys' take on 14 to 15-year-old black belts to, I think, doing a job like part-time? I think it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, most of you on here probably see that you lose a lot of your students that start at 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 years old. By the time they're 14, 15, most of you see that you lose a lot of those people. You bring them on where they have to get a job in high school, part-time job, whether it's bagging groceries, cutting lawns, shoveling snow, whatever it is. It's great to have an option that, man, I could get paid to be here and help at the martial arts school. Here's the other tip I'll leave everybody with. But most of you don't have this, and this is where we can help, right? But show every one of your students, every time that they are prepping for black belt or even a junior black belt, sit down with the parents, if they're minors, and the students and adults, everybody, and just show them where they can go if they ever choose. Like, getting a black belt in our school doesn't mean you just got your black belt and now just keep training, right? It can mean any of that stuff, like anybody. But it also means when you get that black belt, you just opened up so many doors for a career path that you'll never be homeless, right? Like you'll always have an opportunity to have a career in martial arts when you get that black belt. You'll have an opportunity. You got to take the opportunity. You got to work for that opportunity, but that opportunity will be there. If you don't have a black belt, you don't have that opportunity with us. So we just let people know that, hey, if your child is 14 or whatever it is and they get a black belt, that person knows there's an opportunity here. At 14 and at 18 and at 20 and at 50 years old, you could have a real career in the martial arts. So we like to plant those seeds. Go ahead.
The other big, this is very off topic, but the other big thing that I like to make sure that I do with all of our team, right, is really plant seeds. And this is on the investment side of things, like getting them involved in a Roth IRA, those types of things. Because look, any one of your people that you bring in at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, right? You can make sure that they retire a millionaire if you can. And I saw Mr. Francisco Jimenez put on here, like show them the discipline about how, and explain the Ben and Arthur story. If you want to look up the Ben and Arthur investment story, you can do that, because they have time on their side and now they can do what they love to do. And if they're disciplined with your guidance and your leadership to be able to put in to their Roth or to their simple IRA or whatever it is that, Roth is easy for everybody. You can show them what that's going to look like. And now they can do the job of their dreams, knowing that this is where they're going to go. And I think that's really an important thing as well. Not just educating on the martial arts side, but educating them for their future as well. And so if we don't have that education, if you don't have that, it's hard for you to give what you don't have, right? That's why it's always great for you to make sure that you're constantly doing continued education and sharpening the saw.
And by the way, guys, don't be afraid if somebody like us right now with that link is trying to sell you something. Take a look and see if you think it can help, as opposed to put a block saying, oh, there's the link. They want me to get, that's why they're doing this. They want me to get to their event. We've been doing this 7 years. And most of the time we forget links and we don't talk about events and all the stuff we do. But somebody posted that, somebody in Maya posted it. So it's up on the screen, but click it, check it out, take a look and see. It's going to be June 30th, July 1st and 2nd at the Disney Coronado Springs Resort with the US Open, in conjunction with the US Open World Championship. So check it out. If you think it'll help, great. And we're going to be back next week, and we're just going to keep trying to inspire you guys and motivate you and maybe help educate you a little bit on certain things or different perspectives. And hopefully we can just raise the industry, raise the standards, impact more people as an industry, and keep plugging away.
Does anybody, be transparent? Like we were talking yesterday, day before, about topics, right? Like, what do we want to do? I mean, 7 years we've been doing this show, right? So there's only so much to talk about and bring it back and talk about it and maybe reshape it. But is there anything specifically that anybody, watching, from an inspiration standpoint, from an education standpoint, a topic standpoint, is there anything that you'd like to see us discuss? Because we want to serve you guys and we're here for you guys, right? Like he talks about this MayaCon event. It doesn't make one difference to any of us, whether you guys go or you don't go or decide to do something with us or not. It's not going to impact our lives one way or the other. But here's what I know. God, I can't even remember the year now. I'll say 12 years, 13 years ago, right? I had a moment to be able to say, yes, I want to, become a client and I want to get involved with consulting, or no, I don't. And it was a decision that I had to make in a moment's time. Well, over 2.5 hours. And I made the decision, and that decision changed the rest of my life and the trajectory of where I've gone for the rest of my life. And sometimes, like your students, when they say no to enrolling, right? Or they say no to wanting to renew their program, they don't know what they're saying no to. So I would encourage you guys to, number one, at least if you haven't been, it doesn't have to be this event. It can be this event, but pick up the phone, call, send us a message, come to an event, look at what you might be saying no to and see if it might be something that inspires you and that resonates with you. Number one. Number two, would love to know any topics or, if you want us to bring people on that have, been in the program, have been doing the program, success stories, we can do that as well, but we'd love to just kind of anyone's feedback if you want to give it, but this is where we'll probably get the crickets. So if anybody, and on the replay, if anybody wants to put it into, we can go back and look at the comments and see.
We never get crickets, Tass.
Never.
Anyway.
Oh, good.
There it is.
That was it. That was all I got. Hey, what do we got? 16, 17 days, something like that. And I'll be down. I'm excited to get out of this weather. Oh, there's a cricket. Look at that.
There it is.
Beautiful.
I hope everybody is doing great. I hope your first quarter was strong, right? And I hope you have some goals set for the year, not just personally, but professionally as well. And hope you're breaking them down and working towards them.
Right on.
So,
and just know that we're always here to help, guys.
We're always here. Tass.
Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody watching.
All right, buddy.
All right, team. We'll talk to everybody later. See everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.